Cycle syncing workouts, worth the hype or a marketing ploy? That's the question, because we have seen a lot in the last 12 to 24 months of people pop up selling different programs and putting out education related to cycle syncing. And we want to talk about where is it actually rooted in evidence and where is it more just someone selling a product or taking a new kind of angle in the health and fitness space. Take it away, bestie.
I think the main thing or the main point that I want to make for this video is it is going to be case dependent and individual dependent. So if you are somebody who struggles with really painful periods, if you have any kind of illness or disease related to your menstrual cycle, this video is probably not going to be for you, okay? So it is going to be based on your own individual experiences, whether you have pain related to your period and what kind of training you're doing, okay, around that time of the month. But I think it's really important to understand, and the thing that I see, or the thing that I probably have the most of an issue with is it just an added barrier to make it more confusing for women to get where they want to be?
Yeah, 100%. And just let's run it back for a second, because with the cycle syncing education in general, it's definitely well-intentioned, and it's great that we are learning more about and also doing more studies on women because we're underrepresented in general, right? So there is an element of this is bringing more awareness and education in general, which we love. And when we think about the cycle, a 28-day cycle, which will include some information and infograph above, there are these rises and falls in hormones throughout that typical cycle, which will impact things like your mood, your energy level, and fatigue. But the thing that I have a problem with as well is something that I've seen in the last 6 months. I screenshotted it. I'll try to find it for this video, is these blanket statements saying in this period we do yoga, and then after this we can do strength training, and then after this we do this. And again, the well-intentioned, we're more educated, we're learning, love that. But the blanket statements is not actually helping people, because it's really hard to stay consistent if we are always stopping and starting. And what I would suggest instead, which we'll dive into in a second, is more so learning to auto-regulate, because how I feel on day one of my period and how I feel on day one of ovulation is going to be different to the next person. So what use is it to me to, without checking in internally thinking I'm going to feel tired this day, I need a rest day? That's not actually helpful, because again, I might feel amazing one day. It's going to depend on so many factors, which is our takeaway mainly for this episode. So what I would suggest to do instead, which I have used Clue, the period tracking app, for I'm going to say 5 or 6 years now. And again, this is my data. These are my trends. This is me tracking things like let's say lower back pain, fatigue, all of those symptoms, right? And that really paints a clear picture on what I can expect. And then I'm taking each day as it comes, still based on that.
I agree, absolutely. And I think that's the most important thing, is learning to understand your body and your limitations around your period or your cycle throughout the month. So for example, I got my period 2 days ago. I usually can tell when my period is coming. Like I'm pretty in tune with my body. I also track my period both on the Flow app. I use Flow, but Flow and Clue are very much the same. And I also track it on my Aura ring because it does my body temperature. Now, I am usually really clued onto my period. I woke up in the morning not thinking I was getting my period at all and got hit by a bus. The main thing to note is I usually don't have heavy periods. I don't really have a lot of pain around my period. I usually can train, do all of my normal things. But this time I've been completely wiped out. I took the full day off. I didn't do any training. This morning I felt better and I went to boxing and everything was good. But if I had said that to, one of my clients who is the complete opposite, who doesn't have any pain, she feels good on day one, she can go and train, I probably would be doing her a disservice, because I'm telling her to rest and recover when she feels absolutely okay to go to the gym, hit her steps, go for a run, include whatever exercise she wants to do here. The thing that annoys me as well, or the thing that I think is just, it adds to the noise and adds to the confusion, is what you said around like, in your luteal phase, you should be doing yoga and stretching. And it's like, if you have a particular goal, so let's just say your goal is to grow your glutes. And if we were to listen to these PDFs or these ebooks or these downloadable resources or videos that you see online all of the time, and you had a goal to grow your glutes, and every single time your luteal phase came around, you spent, maybe 4 days stretching and not doing any weightlifting. Then when your period came around, just say they said, I don't know what they actually say, but let's say they say on your period to do Pilates. Then you do Pilates. Then in your follicular phase where you are quote unquote meant to be the strongest, then you can go back to weight training. So out of your whole cycle, you're maybe out of your whole 28-day cycle, so, let's look at it as a month, you're only weight training 4 days a week, which is probably not going to help you grow your glutes long term. So I think it's really important that as the person listening to this episode, you do your own research, you have a little bit of discernment in terms of what you're consuming on social media, and you pay attention to your own cycle and your own indications and the way that you feel. Because, I was even saying this before we recorded, but like my period 6 years ago is completely different to what my period is now as you age. And then even as you age more, I'm sure it's going to change when I get to my mid-30s or my early 40s. So it's really important that you are tracking the data for yourself. You're paying attention to your mood, your energy levels, your fatigue, your sleep data before you go and go, this month I'm just not going to go to the gym at all. Or I've, downloaded this resource and it told me that I'm not allowed to strength train, so I'm not going to strength train. And then you find yourself in that cycle of not getting the result that you want, feeling like you've tried everything, feeling really stuck, and then being really disheartened with the results that you can't seem to achieve.
Yeah, and I think that I would also say that all of this kind of content around, doing this or doing that, or any kind of blanket suggestions around what you should do is adding to the noise and the overthinking, which makes it really overwhelming. And let's just say the example of if you're struggling with consistency or you're trying to build resilience in training, then this is going to be hard because it's kind of telling you actually just take it easy. And there are times to take it easy, right? But if you are actually okay to train, then taking it easy is actually not the right advice for that person. It's actually going to be the thing that stops you from getting into the rhythm, building resilience, and continuing to show up. What I would suggest, because again, if you do have, really heavy periods, or if you go through times where your energy is really low, what I would say would be a better approach would be, like we've said, get really in tune with auto-regulating. How am I feeling? And then focus on how can I be adaptable? Because if you have the mindset that you're always going to have 100% to give to your training sessions, that all or nothing mindset that we can get stuck in, sometimes it can feel like, well, what's the point of training today if it's going to be a shit session? The point is to be consistent, because even if it's not 100%, it's still better than zero.
Yeah.
So there are going to be days where you're wiped out and you can't train, and that's okay. But even if it's a day where you don't feel 100%, my suggestion is to still do something and to be okay with the fact that you've just maintained a consistent routine and that you have shown up, because that's what's going to add up and accumulate to you getting the results you're wanting, rather than only showing up when you're 100%.
Yeah, 100% agree. Something I say to my clients all of the time is control the controllables. If you are just say day one of your period, you can't do anything. You're completely wiped out. You're feeling like shit. You're wanting to sleep in, whatever the thing is. It's like, okay, that's 1 day out of 7 for the week. If on day 3 you're feeling fine, you can just move that session that you missed on the Monday that you got your period to the Wednesday when you feel better. And it's not about just going, okay, black and white, I've had a shitty start to the week because I got my period, so I'm not going to do anything for the rest of the week. It's going, okay, I had a pretty rough shit start to the week, but I still have 6 more days ahead of me to back it up and get back into normal programming and normal routine. If I'm not struggling with any pain, or if I'm not struggling with, any crazy levels of fatigue, insert all of the things here. So controlling the controllables and not throwing in the towel just because you have a shitty start to the week or a shitty day. And I mean, the crux of what we always talk about on this podcast is being consistent, not finding excuses to just dip out of your goals and go, oh, it's too hard, I'm not going to do it, but also being adaptable, like you mentioned. The only way to get results in any avenue of your life, especially when it comes to your health and fitness, is to learn how to control the controllables, do what you can. And let's just say, for example, yesterday, I was completely wiped out from day 1 of my cycle, okay? I couldn't go to the gym, right? I was in a lot of pain. So what I focused on was good nutrition, staying hydrated, and resting. Perfect. I'm still controlling part of the picture, Okay. I went outside, I got my steps in. I wasn't focusing on getting my steps in, but I knew I could walk and that would be fine. But going to the gym and doing any kind of heavy lifting, I felt really sick and it wasn't going to happen. So instead of me just going, you know what, fuck this for the rest of the week, I'm done. It's like we just control the controllables and we keep on keeping on, knowing that the end goal is going to get closer and closer and closer.
Yep. And another point that I want to touch on is just a reminder to be careful who you follow and the blanket statements that they make or blanket suggestions, which leads on to the first point around different programs. But I think that it's still something that we need to be aware of, because there are some really big accounts in the health and fitness space that put different information out there, whether it be around your cycle, whether it be around certain diets to follow. And this, again, adds to the noise, adds to the confusion, and can create certain barriers for women, especially if they think they have to be put in a certain box or have more rules around what they do. So it's a whole other topic around like the different quality of evidence. But I would just say have a level of not just taking everyone's suggestions or anecdotal subjective opinions as gospel, and just trying to be really in tune with yourself and just trying to kind of take the things that you say or, you know, new things that pop up, like, for example, different supplements, just with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
With a grain of salt. How do I always stuff this one up?
Grain of salt. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And also as well, like, ask yourself, I know for me personally, do I want to follow a fucking 45-page ebook or PDF or downloadable telling me on my luteal phase I can't do X, Y, and Z? I'm going to be like, I know for me that would cause me a state of panic, being like, I already feel like I'm not doing it right. Oh my God, I'm already one day into my luteal phase and I didn't realize because I forgot to check my app and I didn't cross-reference with my, no. Like, that is just overwhelming, to say the absolute least. And I think when you learn, okay, and also as well, like, it needs to align with your goal. Right? So like, for example, if your goal is to, like I said before, grow your glutes, or your goal is to lose 10 kilos, it's like, is doing that stop starting in your best interest to achieve the goal that you desire? Probably not. So being really specific on, okay, what is my goal? Also, do I want to overwhelm myself even more? Or can I just focus on the absolute basics? The basics being getting enough sleep. Recommendations, 7 to 9 hours. Moving your body. Now, there is no perfect step goal, and I'm just saying this in general health, not even for like weight loss or whatever. There's no like step goal that's going to do anything magically. But for overall heart health, so you're not living a sedentary lifestyle, I would aim for 8,000 to 10,000 steps per day. Eating nutrient-dense foods. More whole foods than more processed foods. 80-20 rule. 80% soul foods, 80%, that would be a good life, wouldn't it? 80% whole foods, 20% soul foods, and doing some sort of training. In my personal preference, I'm going to say some sort of weight training. We know that there's lots of research that backs how good weight training is for women specifically, but any sort of movement, right? Whether it's, you know, doing Pilates 3 days a week, whatever your thing is, do that. Instead of this start into a fucking PDF about luteal phase, blah, 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 blah. Too much.
My final thoughts are that cycle syncing cycle awareness is useful when it is making you better educated and more in tune with yourself. It's useful when you now understand, okay, my weight spikes at certain times. It doesn't mean that I'm doing anything wrong. It's good when you can see these trends of, okay, low energy, I can adapt and I can put my training later in the week, right? That is useful because we're creating more awareness of our own, you know, trends and how we can expect to navigate life, especially when we have training goals. When it's limiting is when it puts you in a box of certain blanket recommendations around types of exercise and how you're expected to feel, or how people are grouped together.
Yes.
Because that's not useful for a multitude of reasons. Where you are in your life cycle, like where you are in your life, are you a young person, an older person? All of that's going to change kind of what's happening. Other than that, also just your own goals, and everything's going to basically be individualized. So that is when it is limiting, when it is telling you how your group of people are feeling, and that's when you become out of touch with your own kind of trends And that's when I think that it creates a barrier and overcomplicates health and fitness.
Absolutely. I also think being very mindful, like you said, Gem, around who you get information from online. And there's always a blanket rule of thumb that I like to follow. If anybody is doing anything in extremes and, you are to ask them a question and they give you, actually, let's just back that up for a second. How to tell if somebody knows what they're talking about is when I ask them a question, it should start with "it depends," especially when it comes to your health and fitness. Because if anyone asks me a question, like if somebody slides into my DMs and goes, "Look, I want to lose 10 kilos. This is exactly how much I weigh. What do I need to eat?" Well, it depends, because I don't know anything about your output levels. I don't know about your stress management. I don't know how much water you're drinking. There is a lot of things that go into the equation of just setting your calories and macros or losing weight. So if you are looking for somebody who is good or where you could take really great information from, is see how they go with giving information and adding those blanket statements on. So if they go, "Every woman should follow this PDF," it's like, well, you're wrong. Like plain and simple, you're wrong, because it depends on the person, because everybody is going to have their own experience. Everyone is at different levels. Everyone has different goals. Insert all the things. So just being really mindful that the information that you are consuming is good information that comes from a reliable source is very, very important. I also just think tracking your period in terms of understanding your own trends, in terms of understanding your own weight fluctuations, in terms of getting educated about your body is great. I actually think that everyone should be tracking their period, because it's going to make a lot of sense. Like when I think about ovulation, for example, I'm at least 4 kilos heavier on the scale during ovulation. During my period, my actual bleed, no weight change on the scale. I don't know about you.
I have really bad bloating and right-hand side ovulation pain, or around my ovulation. It's a thing.
Does your scale weight fluctuate ovulation or period more?
Ovulation.
Oh, really? Interesting. Because a lot of women that I coach will say that the week of their period, they'll see a massive jump or a massive spike in the weight on the scale. So even that, it's like, me gaining weight on the scale through ovulation versus one of my clients gaining weight on the scale through their period, even that's completely different. So just paying attention to what your body is, what your goals are, and being very mindful that we're not just listening to people's blanket statements online.
And what's trending.
Because it is trending. And to be honest, if I hear someone say, "Buy my menstrual cycle fucking workout thing," you're instantly unfollowed and probably blocked, because it just adds to the noise. And I think that's what annoys me. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent now. You've unlocked a thing in my brain. You didn't do anything. I've unlocked it in my own brain. But I think it is, it's actually more harmful, like when we think about it long term, because it does add to the confusion. It does add to the noise. And then it makes everybody struggle to get where they want to be. And then you feel stuck, and then you feel like you've tried everything, and then you feel like nothing's ever going to work for you. And it's easier to just go back to your old patterns, habits, and behaviors instead of just looking at it and going, "You know what? I'm actually just confused as shit, because I probably don't need to be following this information. And I need to be doing the basics like I mentioned before."
Yep. I'm going to wrap it up right there.
That's our story. Well, if you guys enjoyed today's episode, thank you so much for watching. If you could, and if you're watching us on YouTube and you want to like, subscribe, and comment, comment something cutesy.
Please. And thank
Tell
you
us
so
that
much.
you love us or something. We both, our love language is words of affirmation. So that would be really nice.
Please tell us that you are loving us and what you'd like to see more of. And we'll see you again next week.
Bye.
Bye.